So this is our last panel of the day. It's on telematics. It's what brokers need to know about, and I don't think we've yet got enough information. So our panelists, on my right is Debbie Olsen from Quindell. She's VP of Product Innovation. Hope that hasn't changed. Clinton D'Souza from CGI, Product Manager. Next is Blair Currie from IMS. He's VP of Business Development. To his right, Savoie from Baseline Telematics, President and CEO. And we have Patrick Weiss, who is on our board, and Debbie's on our board as well. Patrick Weiss from Frank Cowan and Company, and I forget your title.
Other duties of the site.
He's the main IT dude. Does that work?
That works.
That works. Okay. So to start this off, we thought it was really important to do a level set, so we all understand what telematics is, kind of what are the options, how does it work. So Debbie and Clint are going to do that for us, and then we're going to move into the questions for the panel. Debbie's going to start us.
Okay. Apparently I need all of these things, so I'm holding them.
Well, there's two more that you didn't know.
No, these are plenty. Thanks. All right, let's see if this works. Look at that. What brokers need to know about telematics? So we're trying to start very simple. We don't know that anybody has any level of information about telematics. So if you'll forgive me and indulge me, we're going to start at the very, very basic level, and then we're going to go a little further on the assumption that no one knows anything about telematics. So we're going to start with how it works. And that's sort of one of my big things. If you don't really understand how it works, how can you explain it to somebody else? What it is, the variety of offers and solutions that are out there. Why does insurance care so much about telematics? Why is it such a big buzz? And why it's important to you, the future. Now, are you going to come and chat with me, Clinton, when we chat? All right. So this is the big one. How it works in 7 easy steps. All right? If you walk away with this only, you'll at least know what telematics is. All right? So telematics, does this have a little laser? Oh, look at that. Awesome. All right. So talk about a device. All right? Telematics is device-based data. The device generates data, and that data is used in insurance to rate how you drive and where you go. But the key part of telematics is that it's device-based. So you've got a device. That device has a SIM card put in it, okay? A SIM card is exactly what you have in your phone. It's the thing that connects your mobile phone to the world. It's the connectivity part. It's the part you pay the bill for in your cell phone, all right? That's the SIM card. So this device, you put a SIM card inside it. Now it can talk to the world. You configure that device by putting some software on it, all right? So now I've got a device, I've got it powered and connected to the world, and I've got some software on it, all right? Then I take that device and I plug it into my car. Plugging it into my car is essential because the car is the power source, okay? So far you can see I've got a device and a SIM card, but I don't actually have a power supply. In your cell phone, you charge that for a period of time. You have batteries, all right? This device is powered by your vehicle. You insert that configured device into what's called the OBD port, onboard diagnostic port, standardized in North America in 1996, all right? It's the thing that the mechanic plugs into your car to figure out what the diagnostics of your computer are. There are much more sophisticated ways these days, but since 1996 in North America, this has been standardized as I call the OBD port. What you'll hear it's OBD2 because it's the 2nd generation port. So that's what you'll hear. The device plugs into your OBD2 port. All right? Most of them, OBD2 port, most cars, it's right under the dash, right here. The Adjusto advertising says, it's so easy, if you can plug a toaster in, you can plug the device in, okay? It really is that. Plug it in. That plugged into your car, raw data transmits automatically and directly out of your car. That's the data generation part. It's the device with software put into your car. It generates data out, that data goes to some secure data servers in the cloud for processing. That's where the raw data goes. The processing part is a whole bunch of web services and other things that turn it into secure private user access 24/7 on any kind of a device that you might want. All right, so you'll notice I've said nothing about what the device captures, what it measures, and how that information is put together. Those are all the varieties of telematics. But this is telematics, all right? There's an evolution where the device, you'll hear people talk about the device being the smartphone. Instead of being the device, think about it. I got my smartphone. My smartphone's got this. I download an app, okay, to configure it. I'm carrying it with me in the car. It's generating data out to the world, and suddenly that's telematics based on a smartphone. The evolution of that is eventually the device is going to be the car. You won't need to plug a device into your car because your car itself will come with some level of connectivity, some ability to transmit data, some software, numerous computer chips inside it. All right? Questions? Oh! 5 minutes left, or I've done 5 minutes?
Oh.
Okay.
I don't need that mic. So this is some of the potential type of data that the devices are going to be producing and that they are giving out to insurance companies that are already involved in this. And so if you see over here,
You want the little pointer?
Pointer?
Okay.
Okay.
Pointer?
Yeah. So if you see over here, there's the GPS position, basically where you are, where the driver is. There's stuff with regards to when the engine is powering up. There is information with regards to idle time, the end of the trip, the geofence boundary, which is another slide we'll show you in terms of how the geofence works and how he can utilize it as part of of offering the customer where they are and looking at their trips. Fuel consumption. This is just this is not even the amount of data that's available. There's a lot more, and what they call raw data, and we'll get into that in the panel discussion.
Okay, clicker.
Next clicker. Sorry. So,
Keep going, yeah.
do you want me?
No, keep going.
So right now, here are the companies that are involved that have launched a telematics program in Canada. So the first one is Industrial Alliance that was launched with Baseline Telematics. Come on, Andre.
Wave.
And that's a true UBI type of program in terms of how it works.
What does that mean, a true UBI program?
Do you want to?
What does that
Well,
mean?
it's a UBI. It's a UBI. It's a UBI program.
Okay, do you understand what that means, Will?
Is this on?
User-based insurance.
Yes, you're on, Paul. Paul Andre.
Go ahead, Bob.
Hear me? Testing 1, 2.
I'll just turn you up. Okay,
Okay. No?
there you go.
All right.
Whoa.
Okay, so the question was, what's true UBI?
Oh, UBI.
Yeah, UBI is an acronym for usage-based insurance, or telematics insurance is very interchangeable with usage-based insurance.
Desjardins, who was launched with a company called iMetrics. It's a discount-only program, and we'll talk about that later. CAA, which is working with Quindell. It's a non-insurance offering for roadside assistance to their customers. IVO, broker, obviously association, that's working with Quindell, and it's a discount-only program right now. And the Cooperators, which has launched with IMS, Mr. Currie, and Ingenie, which will be a brokerage-based offering, which is working with Quindell, and it's going to be targeting young drivers. And then SGI, which has a motorcycle telematics program through Baseline Telematics. And last but not least, Intact, to their broker distribution company, and Blair, which is working with Opto, which is a discount-only program, and provider of Russia, I guess now.
And if I can say, so true UBI isn't just a discount. It's actually taking what we all use today is estimated information to rate on what the customer thinks they're going to do or what they tell us they're going to do. This is actual information. So a true UBI rates on the actual data information. It doesn't give you just a discount for generating all that data and giving it in. Sure. All of the data shows that there's a correlation between reduced claim frequency and telematics. So that whether you think it's whether you believe it's psychological that people who are being watched drive better, whether you believe it's because you can do just-in-time response to serious claims and therefore avoid litigation and deliver better service and resolve things faster and all of the things that bring those numbers down. The absolute number, it was the Washington one, Transportation Research Board in 2007, exposure to the feedback generated over 40% reduction in crash rates. That's a heck of a reduction in crash rates in terms of human lives, not just money.
Why don't you do this one? Okay.
Sure, geofencing. Geofencing is big in Europe, particularly where you're crossing into certain areas they don't want you. There's kind of curfews. There's certain things that we don't really do here. But the application here, I think, is excellent for US or out-of-province exposure, sort of assessing where it is people drive, particularly on the commercial side, and our US exposure concerns can really be dealt with, again, not with estimated, but with actual data.
So this is just a survey of the global marketplace for UBI and by obviously geographical region. So obviously in Europe, it's a large percentage of policyholders like UBI. They like using this as a form of an insurance product. In Canada, I'm sorry, in the US, 50%. And the Canadian, I think we had a slide before that, Canadian numbers also are pretty high. The people are willing to try it out in terms of devices. Yep.
And this is why it's important, all right? This is the part where things are starting to talk to other things. The idea that your vehicle driving down the road might be able to interact with the street light ahead, with the other vehicles on the road, understanding that what the traffic congestion looks like, where it is that it might reroute you to. Together with telematics, there's this RFID, if you've heard that, radio frequency ID. And what that does is you can put an RFID on this chair right here. Okay, it's a little sensor right here, and then you can ask it, is there someone sitting there or not? And it knows it's got someone sitting in it or not. And so that RFID information can be used to do things like tell you on the outside of the GO train that this car's got 28 empty seats and that one's got 14 people standing in it. That kind of stuff. You start to be able to interrogate things that really don't do anything, and they can start talking to you. You add all of that, that's called the Internet of Things. That Internet is growing, and your vehicle is part of the Internet of Things in the way that it talks and communicates. So you'll have ecosystems of people, but what this is talking about, the other word you'll hear all the time when you talk about telematics is M2M. And they write it M2M. And what they mean is machine to machine. So they're not talking about people talking to people. They're talking about machines talking to other machines and making decisions and changing what happens as a result of those interrogations and answers. I think that's our end.
You got 1 minute to spare. And I think
Yeah, whatever.
Don't spend it all in one place.
Okay.
I think all of us just came from a telematics show.
Right, we're way keen.
And one of the reasons and, that this is important, one of the speakers, I guess, who had mentioned, is, brokers eventually have to start to understand this, because your policyholders are going to be wanting to, question you how it's going to work and how the data is transmitted. And so, it's more of an education that brokers, insurance companies, and policyholders have to have. So, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so now we get into the questions for the panelists. So, Patrick, I'm going to go to you first, and I think I'm a little too loud here. Hang on. Do you think telematics is here to stay, and why? And Patrick, I missed inviting him actually to our dry run call, so he doesn't know the context here, but there have been different flavors coming in and out about how we rate cars or how we rate policies was going to change. There's going to be no age and marital status anymore. We've been through so many iterations, there's so many thoughts about the next flavor. And I guess the question is telematics the next flavor, or truly is it here to stay?
Well, I think that Clinton showed the kind of uptake, the responsiveness of people to telematics and usage-based insurance. From my perspective, at least the stuff that I've been seeing, is that we continue to get in automobile insurance, well, I haven't had a ticket in X number, and it's not fact-based stuff when it comes to claims. This is an opportunity for underwriting companies to get real data on the usage of vehicles and the behavior of drivers to make decisions on what premium is going to be charged, what risk level we're at. So there is an appetite amongst insurers to get better and more refined, and also to get better segmentation. So for instance, Industrial Alliance has targeted drivers, now this is in Quebec, so it's a different environment, but targeted drivers in the, Paul Andre can help me with this, in the 16 to 24-year-old, typically male drivers. What their objective is to do two things. One is to underwrite more effectively, but second is to affect behavioral modification with these drivers early on and reduce the risk of accidents because of driver error. So they've done additional things with all of this data to reinforce good behavior, and they reinforce it by telling the driver on is it weekly or monthly? Weekly. On a weekly basis, what their premium is going to be next month if they keep doing the same thing that they've done the past week. A fairly effective behavior modifier for the younger driver, or if the driver isn't paying attention, the parents of the younger driver who also get a copy of this report. So this is the type of creativity that can go into this stuff, and it extends to other areas. Clinton mentioned that there's 80% uptake interest in doing this in Italy. Telematics was introduced in Italy, not for anything to do with driving or drivers. It was to be able to track vehicles after they were stolen. There's a high degree of theft in Italy. This is a way to go find that vehicle and potentially even to talk to the vehicle and saying, by the way,
Where are you?
comes on the radio, who are you and why are you driving a car? By the way, you might want to pull over because we're about to turn the ignition off. So these are the types of things that can happen. When you get that type of creativity, Clinton used the phrase turn underwriting on its head. This is really turning underwriting on its head. It's threatening to some people because we certainly don't have an understanding of all this data. It's very exciting to other people to have a different way of doing the same old thing and maybe making it more transparent to the consumer.
So that's Patrick speaking as a MGA, a carrier brokerage. Paul-Andre, would you like to answer that as well?
Sure, absolutely. So I also agree that telematics is here to stay. I second everything that Patrick has said, but I'll go about it from another perspective, another point of view. On a global basis, today, telematics programs are present in over 35 countries around the world. So it's really a global phenomenon. In terms of auto policies today that are being written by some form of telematics solution, whether it's an OBD device or a smartphone, we're looking at over 5.5 million auto policies today around the world that are being written with telematics components within them. So experts assume that within North America by 2020, over 15% of auto policies will be underwritten with some form of telematics. And when you think about it, earlier we were talking about true UBI versus just discount only. And when you look at the typical questions you ask your clients to give them a fair price, a fair quote, a lot of those questions are proxies to the actual risk, which is the way they drive or the way they drove. With telematics, you no longer care about whether or not they've had speeding violations or accidents in the past, because you're actually able, as Industrial Alliance did in Quebec, to create a program which will have a variable premium every month based on the way they drove in the past 30 days, and then reminded of that every week. So more than any other risk characteristic, the way people drive is by far the most important. Telematics allows us to capture that, and it does allow to change the way insurance is packaged and sold. So I do think it's here to stay. It's already hit what we call a critical mass in the technology industry. And I think that very innovative programs are yet to come. Of course, the largest stumbling block are the regulators who just aren't willing to deal with these realities.
And you folks heard from the regulators today on this topic. Anybody else? Blair, Clinton, because that's a pretty big question, a pretty important question. Anybody want to add anything different?
We can both do it, just simply as these guys have covered off really well. If you believe that cars are going to become autonomous and that telematics is kind of the basis of that, this is going to happen. If you want to see the future now, William Gibson says the future's here, it's not evenly distributed. Go to a Tesla dealership, they basically have all cars tracking at all time. And so if you could find that if you're a great driver, and we all know that great drivers pay more and bad drivers pay less, if you're a great driver, you're going to want to prove to your insurance company that you're a better driver. So there are certain segments of the population that drive this ahead. That data will be available. So certainly it's here to stay. I think the facts are that it's rolling forward. And I think as a broker community, you're going to find ways of establishing your relationships stronger in the insurance value chain there. For instance, is that the number of connections you have with a consumer is very infrequent, maybe twice a year. But with telematics, you can talk to them weekly. You can give them some coaching and basically saying is, I can help save you fuel costs with this. So this is a way for the brokers to get back into the value equation, to reassert your position, to add more value, and to be a real player in it. So I think that telematics is not just, it's here to stay. It presents you guys with a new tool basically to succeed. And
Blair moved into question 3.
I do that.
It's great, yeah. So do you want to give a very quick on the why to stay?
I believe it's here to stay because I believe everything actual is replacing everything estimated. If you think about your hydro bill, if you think about even Peak Saver, this stuff is around you everywhere already, and in fact insurance is slow to take it up. So I believe it's definitely here to stay, and we're just on the early path in insurance to something that's got far greater traction outside of our industry.
So Clint, would you say it's personal lines only?
No, I think it's personal lines, commercial lines. There's commercial lines that's been doing it for a long, long time. Personal lines now is getting into it, but it's both lines of businesses.
What do you mean, commercial lines? Like, has been doing it for a long, long time?
Yes.
There's a lot of commercial fleets that use telematics to basically as a risk management tool.
Okay, not for rating.
Not for rating.
Okay.
For a risk management perspective.
So do you think it's going to move into commercial lines for rate purposes as well, though?
Great question. I think there's probably opportunities there.
Yeah.
I think that companies might leverage in terms of using it for rating purposes.
Okay. So question 3, and Blair started down that path. What opportunities and what threats do you think telematics creates for brokers? Nobody wants to take this one. Paul-Andre, you must.
Just bouncing around like a hot potato.
It feels like that, doesn't it?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years now, and of course, I think telematics is probably the biggest thing that's happened to car insurance since cars. You just have to be able to grasp that as an opportunity. Of course, the insurance industry is an industry that is designed historically to avoid risk and push back change. So it's obviously not the industry that's going to embrace the kind of change that needs to be embraced for telematics to be leveraged. That being said, in the UK, where it's a really fertile ground for telematics, in the UK there are already how many policies in the UK? 500,000, and it just started 2-3 years ago. There's more activity on telematics in the UK through brokers than through direct writers. In fact, many brokers got together and said, let's build our own programs. The underwriters aren't moving fast enough. And there were some purpose-built MGAs around creating new products that leverage the capabilities of telematics. And they designed them around the aggregators, because in the UK, those aggregator sites is where most of the volume goes. So they packaged products that were in the top 3 prices in the aggregator sites 9 times out of 10, lowest price possible advertised, and then plus your behavior, plus your mileage. And today, the telematics uproar in the United Kingdom is primarily broker-based, because the brokers saw an opportunity to take that technology and turn it into a new product faster than even the direct writers could. So yes, tremendous opportunity.
So that's opportunity. So Patrick, maybe you're going to speak a little bit to opportunity and more to potential threat if you see a threat for brokers.
You're very subtle, Wendy.
I'm trying to be, yeah.
Let me start with the opportunity side, if you
Please.
don't mind. Having had the privilege of working with brokers for some number of years now, one of the things that you folks have that insurance companies don't have is a very clear picture of the customer, what their needs and their wants are. What we're going to see over the next period of time as telematics are adopted by insurers, are insurers gravitating to different market segments without necessarily being able to communicate that effectively to the insurers. Go figure. The ones who will have the opportunity of doing that and helping the consumers, and I think this is why some of the stuff that's happening in the UK is happening through brokers, is because they are going to be able, you are going to be able to articulate very effectively to the consumers. I'll make it up as we go along. Guarantee company wants your business, and they are targeting their usage-based insurance because of X, Y, and Z, and you fit that type of profile, so that's why I'm putting you with the Guarantee Company of North America, not to pick any company in particular. But this is the type of behavior that you will have, but you will have to get a working knowledge, a good working knowledge of the marketing features that are inherent in the product offerings from the insurance companies. The threat that I see is the exact opposite. That you will be inundated with information from different insurers of, we want this because of these different factors, and you'll be lost in the mud and not be able to get and take a higher level look at it. There's going to be an awful lot of information that's going to be coming your way that you will have to absorb, but you've done this before.
Yes, we can do it.
You've done this before, and you've done it often, and you've done it very well. So that's, I think, the opportunity back into.
So the next question is, will the data be portable? So Debbie talked to you about, and Clinton, they showed you a device that goes into your vehicle. And I would presume, I could be correct, that the information from that device is sent to a carrier in particular, not multiple carriers. So a carrier has information on how you've been driving for the past however many months. So you now want to change insurance companies. You want to go to a broker and get a quote for somebody else. How portable is that data? If I have a customer come in my office to give them quotes. So Blair, Paul-Andre.
I'll take a stab at it. It is, data can be portable, and it depends how much we move towards standards. So I think that we as an industry are trying to embrace Accord standards and CSIO standards here in Canada. And I think that the idea of being able to get a driving score and move that from one insurer to another is quite probable and possible. We're going down that route.
Good.
I think also at the same time as the insurance company doesn't want that to happen necessarily. So I think in some cases who pays the piper calls the tune. And so in that sense that you probably are going to have to have 2 sets of data. You're going to have the score data, which you can travel from one insurance company to another.
Like a credit score.
Right. And the various, I call them key driving indices. Clinton had a nice list of all those variables that come out of there. Each insurance companies want to be able to take that and weight it in its own special form. So the data is beautiful in the sense like you can transport it, they can use it, and data is best when it's shared. That's my point of view.
So Deb, you were reaching for the mic on the portability?
I was going to say that the size and shape of the data created by the device depends quite often on what the outcome is. So if the outcome of the telematics program is to coach better driving, coach better behavior in young drivers, then you had better be taking a sample of that data every second, or even more than that, because you're going to need that kind of granular level of information to help coach someone to judge how they're doing and give them a real response around that behavior. But if your goal is to measure your US exposure, then maybe you only need to capture the data once every 5 minutes where somebody is, as opposed to every second. Well, if I roll that up to a score out of 100, I might be able to say that that's portable.
Okay.
But underneath that, one generates this much data that looks like this, and the other one generates data that looks like that. The company that has this data can't do anything with that data. And the company that wants this much data, this won't serve their purpose. But at a score level, again, not in the credit score where you may not look at the number of credit cards or mortgage payments or missed bills or anything like that, but you get a credit score. So there will be some ability perhaps to even compare in the early days discounts. You'd be able to judge that this company's discount is loosely equivalent to that company's discount, might be in the early stages of it. But the idea, and I think brokers are the ones who
Doesn't
need,
sound easy.
no, but brokers are the ones who need to push something like a score,
I think Rick
right?
has a
Out of
Yep,
standard.
okay. And we're going to have to push our answer shorter too, where we're rushing time here. Yes, Rick?
Just one comment. I don't think the insurance companies are going to recognize the other people's score, because every score is generated by how that company weights their data. So an 89 with Guarantee Company of North America might be a 45 with Jevco. And Intax 99 might be someone else's 65. So they're going to have their own proprietary algorithms that take all this data and come up with a final score. But we will never know, I don't think, how they weight them individually. So one score versus another score will be it's apples and oranges.
But I think,
Common filing.
yeah, it could have a common filing, but I think what the regulators have said and is, it has to be transparent to the public of that score, right? There have to be transparencies in terms of how they're scoring that driver, right? Because they're going to ask, right? And they're either going to ask the broker or they're going to ask the insurance company. So,
Paul-Andre, this is for you. It refers to privacy and consent. Who controls, not owns, who controls the data being collected, and can a client ask for it back?
That will depend on the insurance carrier who built the product. Everyone is going to have their own terms and conditions in terms of how they want the data used and how they want the customer to provide consent to use that data. Typically speaking, the data doesn't really belong to the insurer. The insurer is let's call it the trustee or the custodian of the data. You wouldn't want, in any type of situation, to withhold information from a consumer that they themselves generated. So, as long as the insurer in their programs, and the insurers we work with all pretty much follow the same path, they're the custodian of the data. They will provide the data back to the policyholder on request, either through a portal, download it themselves, or phone call and have it sent over a USB key or email. And if the client leaves the program, they can also ask for that data to be wiped. So I'm no longer with the program, I don't want any residual traces of where I've been and what I've done, and they'll gladly wipe that data out. Remember, this is metadata. This data is very similar to the phone calls you make on a Rogers wireless plan. There's not all that much value in the data, other than the fact that there is confidential information in terms of where you've been. But back to the other question, just a little bit, if I may, about the portability. When you go and shop a cell phone plan, and you work with TELUS and you're going to Rogers, you can bring last month's bill. It's not really going to change the program that's going to be offered to you from another mobile carrier. And that data is kind of the same thing. So it should be wiped on request. It should be given on request. The insurer should not share it with any other external parties for any other reasons whatsoever. Can be used for detection of fraud. That's typically in the fine print. If you detect fraud, you reserve the right to use it to prove that you're not committing fraud. And other than fraud, usually the fine print says, we will only use the telematics data to try to determine responsibility in an accident if you provide us with your consent after the accident.
Right.
Typically the kind of language that we see is all pro-consumer. This is all for the consumer.
So I'm struggling with which questions we ask because there's so much information I want these guys to hear that you guys can deliver. So Patrick, do you guys think you answered sufficiently how a broker can bring value in a telematics world? Does anybody want to add anything? No? Because you did speak to it already.
I did, but the one thing to reinforce something that Paul and Ray alluded to, one place that insurers are very keen on this stuff is not just on the underwriting side, but on the claims side. This allows you to reconstruct accidents in a way that's never been done before.
Awesome. So, Clinton, how different will the pricing be for telematics clients?
I think it'll be, every client would be different because every driver's different, the behavior of the driver's different.
So you used phrases like discount only. So expand upon that. Is there a variant other than just discounted prices? Can we get to surcharges for the really bad people?
Sure, and I mean right now what the regulators have said is they're only authorized for discounts. So the Desjardins, the Intacs, right now I've only been able to get the approval for discounts. Having said that, the regulators have said that, obviously surcharges is going to be the next step. In order to do that, the insurance companies have to have the data to prove that. Right. So with the Desjardins model, they've actually, you hear on the radio when it came out that they're offering 20-25% discount, but that's actually false. It's actually a 5% discount first, and then they are going to wait and take I think a 2-year time frame to see how much data they have and then offer the full discount. So the point being that all these companies that are getting into it right now are wanting to collect the data in order to look at how valid the rate is.
So if you pass that to Blair, this is the one that brokers we need to listen to the answer to, and I'm going to ask Blair and Paul-Andre, how will we brokers explain the different telematics offerings to our consumers? We'll be offering something, the directs will be offering something. How do we explain that difference?
I think the critical thing is you got to keep up with it because this is going to change very quickly. If you go back 5 years when Aviva started their program, they used a huge device that used to take the USB stick out, take it in. So the first thing that's going to change is technology is going to get simpler. It's going to move from devices to cell phones to the car and a combination of the thing. The second thing, the regulation is going to change because right now in Ontario, for instance, we have rate reductions. So it's pretty hard to give surcharging when the general disposition is towards reductions. That'll change and the competitive area will change. So the reality is you're going to need to keep up with this. And so people who keep up with it will be ahead of the game. This is a new weapon in your arsenal here. And those brokers who learn to use it are going to win, and those that are not going to use it are less likely to win with that particular weapon. So I think as an industry association, you have to engage thought leaders on an ongoing basis, and I'd suggest it on a quarterly basis. I don't know if I answered your question, but education is critical to success here.
Okay. Paul-Andre?
Well, today, as you know, there is no underwriter in Ontario that's created a product for brokers to be able to even sell or bring to market. So I'd say that the number one thing you could be doing to stay on the leading edge of telematics in Ontario is reach out to the carriers that you're working with and see how you collaborate with them to design a telematics program in the first place. Because today is a very intellectual discussion because there is nothing for you to go out and offer your clients in Ontario. So I think the number one thing is to work with the carriers that you've got good relationships with and assist them, maybe even work with them in creating committees. And there happens to be, you may want to throw something in there as an underwriter.
Just one thing, don't ignore the commercial market here. There's a lot of interest in commercial insurance in this area, and some even insurers who are in the municipal market space, but I'll just leave it at that.
So, and I think Paul-Andre and Blair can answer this from experience outside of Canada, but when a telematics client calls in for a quote, what will be involved for a broker in getting a quote with multiple markets with other telematics markets?
Well, obviously, the underwriter is going to create a program that's going to be fit for measure for a broker. It's going to build it in such a way that it's going to fit inside of your existing broker management system. In general, telematics programs, when well built, are able to come up with a quote and price with far fewer questions. In Quebec, with Mobilise, what we do with Industrial Alliance, we get a quote with 4 questions. Now, it may not be that few in Ontario, but it is possible to significantly reduce the complexity of obtaining a price.
What?
So ideally,
There's an attractive young woman trying to get your
ideally it's through your existing BMS.
I'm ignoring her.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to tackle that one? No? Okay. So will all clients have to go to telematics to ensure competitive pricing for telematics products? Debbie?
No. No.
It's not the law of large numbers?
Telematics, one of the reasons it's here to stay is because it self-selects. Good drivers say, I'm a good driver, I want that device. They pick themselves. So early entrants get an advantage. It doesn't really matter if they are that much better. As a whole, they've self-selected themselves into that category. By default, that means the remaining category are the higher risk drivers. And so one of the things that, of course, the regulators have said is they don't want to see subsidization from the telematics side to the non-telematics products. At the moment, we don't have a statistical way to separate a telematics policy from a non-telematics policy. But when that time comes, then we'll be able to, all of the industry will be able to look at the real results, and the real results will change the rates.
Okay.
Okay? But typically, those who opt in will initially get better rates than those who do not opt in. And those of us who say, I have a lead foot, kind of like to drive fast, that would be clear if you saw my 81 Pontiac Firebird that I like to drive on weekends. So I'm never getting a telematics device, and I'm dead certain that my rates will probably always stay slightly higher than telematics.
You be
rates.
sure to insure with a direct writer. Clinton, how does the data from a telematics device get into my BMS?
That's a great question. And I think right now, I guess the short answer is that's an unknown, because there's not a broker-based company that has done that. But the key is going to be standards. I think the key is that CZRO's come up with standards for telematics devices. CZRO's working with the insurance companies and brokers. The key is going to be based on standards. How the data is going to flow from the insurance company, to a telematics service provider, to the broker management systems. And I think the first one to adopt those standards as a BMS vendor will succeed.
Vendors in the room?
Yep.
So, what's next? You want to go first? What's next? With telematics, what's next? Oh, Debbie wants to go first.
I'd like to read the 4 things that Bruce Green from Fisco this morning, that's the regulator in Ontario, said was next.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. He said, what's the future? What's coming in telematics? Like he said, the first thing would be there'd be a real focus on the accuracy of the data. Are we measuring the right things? Did we actually calibrate them correctly? Do they really show the actual information the way we want it to? So that's a bit of a growing pain. He said claims and certainly road safety, the combination of using it for claims and using it for road safety both were coming. Thirdly, he said the use of UBI data for surcharging in underwriting and for actual claims adjudication was the third one. And the fourth one he said in the future was that he was really talking about the impact. And this is, I think, something for everyone to really listen to, which is replacing the traditional rating variables is going to be very, very disruptive on some of the status quo people. And one of the things he talked about was, for example, what happens if we don't need to order MVRs anymore? The Ontario Ministry of Transportation would see a sudden $20 million revenue hit or more if the industry stopped ordering MVRs, and you look at the budgets of that. That's just one small example. So those are some of the status quo infrastructure things that are really, need to be overcome, and it's got a lot of power and weight behind it, but it's coming.
So, Paul-Andre, do you see perhaps down the road when somebody like the MTO houses all the data that's collected from the UBI devices and they sell it back to the carriers like they do MVR data now, so that they replace that revenue through something like this big data? Is that a
In
possibility?
your hypothesis, you're assuming the government would host all of where people are at all times?
Well, they'd host the data, like they host,
No, the NSA is taking.
No,
The NSA or the MTO?
Hell, it could be CGI, I don't care. But that there's a central warehouse for all of the UBI data, and then the carriers just pay an access fee for that data based on whoever that customer
I think
is.
Clinton would like that very much.
I defer.
You did
defer
not
to
pay
Paul
me.
Andre.
So what's next, Paul-Andre?
What's next? Beyond vehicles, telematics is going to, I think, revolutionize home insurance. Google purchased Nest for $3 billion. It's a thermostat company. Google now knows when you're home, how you heat your house, how humid things are, how much power you consume in your home. So that's coming big time. And actually, we've got insurers reaching out to us and asking us, because they're having some pretty catastrophic losses on home, saying, what's happening there? How can you help us there? And the quantified self, right? I've got a Fitbit. I'm sure a few people here have a Fitbit or some form of device to measure our own health. And so in group insurance and life insurance, this is going to affect the way insurers are going to be able to analyze your risk about yourself. So telematics is starting in the cars, but I think it's going to quickly evolve into homes and into the quantified self. So I'm going a little further than the vehicle, but I think this vehicle thing is going to get wrapped up pretty quickly, and we're already looking at the future.
Blair?
I think we've got 350 million vehicles in North America, and about 5% are into telematics. So the future is moving forward into that space, and it's moving rapidly. I think there's a lot to be done on that. I think that the data will become a commodity after a point in time, so those rating variables will get known. You'll be starting to add other data onto there, like weather, traffic conditions, and then you're getting into other data, how close you are to other drivers, vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure, because as every vehicle gets close to each other, speeding is not a problem in itself. Speeding very close to someone is a big problem. Yeah. So I think that there's going to be a lot of connected car material, and then as you said, we're finding that some of the very leading insurers are seeing how telematics affects home insurance, because as that car is in the driveway, that house is more secure. Because if there's an accident or a burglary or something like that, you're at home. So you're going to find the connected car will become part of the connected self. Nissan's already experimenting with health insurance to your car. If you ever had a problem in the car, like a heart attack, God forbid, the car would call the hospital. Nice. So it's become an integrated world. So I think there's a lot way to go in automobile telematics. I think there's a few more data variables that are going to come into that. And then I think you're going to get into connecting your whole life.
Okay. And sorry, Clinton and Patrick, 10 seconds each.
And I think actually it's closer than we think. Actually, I know the IBC in November is going to put on a symposium So insurance companies and the self-driving car. And insurance companies need to know, and brokers, how is this going to be insured? Because you're not insuring the driver, it's going to be, there's no driver, it's going to be the vehicle. So.
Yeah.
It's on the news this morning.
Yeah.
And showing it.
No, you have to answer the question. You just only have 10 seconds to do so.
Which question?
What's next?
I don't know.
And that's a valid answer.
One comment on data, just in case you're worried about buying servers. The estimates now with your automobile going down the road, by the way, you have about 10 million lines of code that you're driving. It took about 500,000 lines of code to land the first man on the moon. Each second, you're generating someplace between 750 megabytes and 1 gigabyte of data per second. You need big servers.
We are in the data business. Yeah. Thank you.